My wife said my son was too sensitive when her daughters broke his things and mocked him. I believed her, told him to toughen up, and grounded him for his attitude. He left that night, and the girls just laughed when I cried. I'm 45. My wife Carrie is 41. We've been married a little over 2 years. I have a 15-year-old son, Zach, from my first marriage. Carrie has 2 daughters, Kara, 16, and Tegan, 13. When we first got together, things seemed to work well enough. The girls were loud and energetic. Zach was quiet but polite, and I figured it would just take time for everyone to get used to one another. The first few months were fine. Carrie always said the kids would eventually settle into a sibling rhythm, but slowly, I started noticing Zach spending less and less time in the living room or anywhere near them. He'd keep to his room, always locking the door. Whenever I asked him why he didn't hang out with the girls, he'd shrug and say they didn't like him. Carrie would roll her eyes and tell me he was being dramatic, that teenage boys get moody when there are girls around. After a while, the teasing started. It was small things at first, them hiding his hoodie or making fun of the way he dressed. Zach has always been on the quiet side, into music and art, not really into sports like I was. Carrie used to say he needed to man up more, that her daughters were just being playful, and he had to learn to take a joke. Every time I stepped in, she'd tell me I was coddling him. It got worse over time. I'd come home from work and find his sketchbooks ripped or his stuff rearranged. The girls would say he overreacted when he got upset. Carrie would tell me he needed thicker skin, that he shouldn't let girls' teasing get to him. I remember once Zach came to me angry because his guitar was missing a few strings, and Carrie told me he probably broke them himself to get attention. The guitar wasn't just any guitar, it was his late mother's gift to him. His mom passed when he was 8. That guitar was one of the few things he really cared about. I didn't think the girls would mess with it, but deep down, I guess I didn't want to know. One Saturday, I came home to yelling. Zach was furious. Carrie was standing in the hallway with her arms crossed, and the girls were sitting on the stairs laughing nervously. Zach's guitar was smashed. Not cracked, smashed. Carrie said it was an accident, that they'd been goofing around and knocked it over. Zach shouted that it wasn't true, that they had been pretending to play rock stars, and deliberately broke it. I didn't know what to believe in that moment. Carrie told me he was getting out of control, that he was screaming and throwing things. I told him to calm down. He yelled at me to open my eyes, and I lost my temper. I told him I was sick of his attitude and that he needed to learn some respect. I grounded him for the weekend and took his phone. He went completely silent after that, locked himself in his room, wouldn't come down for dinner. I told myself he was sulking and that it would blow over. Carrie said I had to stop babying him. I actually agreed. I thought I was doing the right thing, teaching him discipline. That night when I went to check on him, he was gone. He'd left a text saying he was going to stay at his Uncle Diego's for a while. I assumed he just needed space, so I didn't panic right away. Carrie didn't seem worried either. She said he'd be back once he realized how ridiculous he was being. The next morning, I texted Diego to let him know Zach was on his way, but Diego said he hadn't heard from him. I started feeling uneasy, but Carrie brushed it off again, said Zach was trying to make me feel guilty. All day, I kept expecting him to text me again. He didn't. By the time it got dark, I was pacing the kitchen. Carrie was upstairs watching TV with the girls, and I could hear them laughing. That's when it hit me how cold it sounded. My son was gone, and the people in my house were laughing like nothing had happened. I don't even know why, but I sat at the kitchen table and started crying. I'm not the kind of man who does that, but it just came out. I kept thinking about that stupid guitar, about how I told him to toughen up, about how I picked the wrong side over and over because I didn't want to fight with my wife. When Carrie came downstairs and saw me, she asked if I was seriously crying over a teenager's tantrum. She said he was just trying to manipulate me, that I needed to stop letting him control the mood of the house. Then she went back upstairs. I sat there until after midnight, hoping I'd hear the door open. I didn't. Now it's been a full day. I called Diego again this morning, and he still hasn't seen him. I don't know where Zach went or if he's safe. Carrie keeps saying he'll show up once he realizes no one's chasing him, but that doesn't sit right with me. Update 1. It has been 3 days since my son left, and I still haven't heard from him. He didn't take much with him, just his backpack and a few clothes, but he hasn't called, texted, or posted anything online. At first, I tried convincing myself that he needed space, that maybe he finally was at my brother Diego's place. But when I drove there and Diego told me he hadn't seen or heard from Zach at all, I felt my stomach drop. That was the first time I realized this might not just be a teenager's outburst. Carrie acted calm about it, too calm. She said he was just being dramatic and that he'd come home once he got hungry or bored. She kept telling me not to panic, that running away for attention was typical for sensitive boys. That word sensitive started to sound like poison. She said it so casually, as if it explained everything about him. When I told her I was calling the police to file a missing person report, she rolled her eyes and said it was an overreaction. I did it anyway. The officers came by, took down his description, asked the usual questions. Carrie smiled and nodded through it all, saying he'd probably gone to a friend's or was hiding out to make me feel guilty for grounding him. She even handed them a school photo like it was a formality. When they left, she told me to stop being emotional and that I was feeding into his behavior. After the police report, I started noticing small things that didn't sit right with me. The first was an email from Zach's school. They said they were aware he'd be taking some time off for emotional regulation. I didn't send that message. I called the school counselor immediately and she told me Carrie had contacted them 2 days earlier, explaining that Zach was overwhelmed and would be taking a break. She even said she was handling everything at home. I hadn't known anything about it. When I confronted Carrie, she said she was just trying to smooth things over and prevent the school from worrying. She said it wasn't a big deal, but it felt like she was managing the story, trying to control how others saw the situation. The more I thought about it, the more it felt like she'd been doing that all along, deciding how things looked instead of how they really were. The girls didn't seem affected at all by Zach being gone. Kara joked that the house was quieter without him. Tegan asked if she could move into his room. They laughed about how dramatic he was. I asked them if they knew where he might have gone, and Kara smirked, saying he'd probably run off to cry at his mom's grave again. I couldn't even look at her after that. I just walked out before I did something I couldn't undo. That night, I went through Zach's room. It felt wrong, like I was invading something private, but I needed to understand. His bed was neatly made, but his desk was a mess: papers, guitar picks, a notebook full of sketches, and a crumpled piece of paper that looked like it had been torn out in anger. I found his broken guitar shoved in a plastic bag in the corner of his closet. Seeing it made me sick. Carrie had told me the girls accidentally broke it while messing around. I believed her then, but looking at it up close, I could tell it wasn't an accident. It was covered in paint and glitter, like someone had done it on purpose. The strings were cut, not snapped. There was even glue smeared across the wood. It looked like someone had tried to make a joke out of it. I checked the girls' things, something I never thought I'd do. On Tegan's tablet, I found a short video saved in the gallery. It showed both girls laughing while they kicked the guitar case down the stairs, yelling something I couldn't fully hear, but I caught enough to know what they were saying wasn't kind. My heart sank. It wasn't just bullying, it was cruelty. They knew exactly what that instrument meant to him. I lost control. I don't even remember what I said. I just know I confronted Carrie with the video, shaking and furious. She looked at it once and said it was teenage stupidity, not worth ruining the family over. She said I was overreacting. I told her I was done ignoring what was happening in this house. I said if she couldn't see how wrong this was, then maybe she was part of the problem. That night, I called my ex-wife's sister. I hadn't spoken to her much since the remarriage, but she picked up right away. I asked if she'd seen Zach. There was a long pause before she said yes, he had shown up late the night he left, completely exhausted, and refused to talk about what happened. She said he was safe, eating and resting, but he didn't want to come home. He told her he couldn't live here anymore. When I told Carrie, she didn't even seem relieved. She just said, if he wants to act like a victim, let him. It was like she couldn't feel anything for him at all. I didn't recognize her in that moment. The woman I married, the one who told me we could build a family together, was gone. What was left was someone cold and detached, someone who could watch a child be broken down and feel nothing. Update 2. I've had time to sit with everything that's happened, and I think I finally understand just how deep this went. After finding Zach's guitar and the video of the girls mocking him, something changed in me. The guilt I felt turned into something else, not just anger, but realization. I started replaying every small moment over the last 2 years, and for the first time, I started to see the pattern. Carrie had been shaping how I saw my own son from the start. I didn't notice it because it was subtle, almost quiet. She would say things like, Zach needed to be included more, then follow it by saying he didn't know how to connect with people. She'd say the girls were trying to bond with him, but he always ruined it with his mood. She'd always translate what the girls supposedly meant when they hurt him. I used to believe she was helping me understand them. Now I see she was training me to doubt him. After Zach went to stay with his aunt, I texted him every day for a week before he finally answered. He kept his messages short, always polite but distant. I asked if he'd talk to me, just the two of us, and he said he would only meet if Carrie wasn't there. That was the first clear line he'd drawn, and it told me everything. So I drove 2 hours to his aunt's house without telling anyone. When I saw him, he wasn't angry or emotional, just quiet. I apologized, told him I'd been wrong, and that I should have protected him. He didn't say much at first. Then he started explaining what life had been like for him here, and I don't think I'll ever forget those words. He said the teasing was never just from the girls. Carrie used to make comments about him being too much like his mother whenever he got upset. She'd tell the girls to toughen him up because he was too soft. If he ever cried, she'd take things away from him, saying he needed to learn to control himself. He told me how she'd tell him that I agreed with her, that I thought the same thing she did, that I was embarrassed by him. I didn't even know that part. I thought I was the one disciplining him, but she had already convinced him I was against him long before I even said a word. Every time he tried to talk to me, I shut him down because Carrie had already told me how to interpret it. He also told me something that made my hands shake. When I was at work, Carrie would tell him stories about how difficult he'd been for me to raise after his mother died, that I had almost given up. She told him I only remarried because I needed help handling him. That was never true. I married her because I thought we could make a real family again. After hearing all that, I felt sick. I don't think I've ever hated myself more than I did in that moment. I believed the person who hurt my son, and I made him think I was part of it. He said he didn't hate me, but he didn't trust me anymore either. I can't blame him for that. I earned that distance. When I got back home, I confronted Carrie. I didn't yell at first. I just told her I knew what she'd done. I told her I had spoken to Zach, and I knew how she'd treated him. She didn't even look surprised. She said she was just trying to make him fit in, that he needed to be pushed out of his comfort zone. I asked her how breaking his things and mocking his grief made him fit in. She said I was taking things too seriously, that boys need to learn not to be so fragile. That was the point I realized she didn't think she had done anything wrong. She truly believed she'd done him a favor. The girls came downstairs when they heard us arguing. Kara rolled her eyes and said Zach was not part of this family anyway. Tegan said she was tired of hearing about him. That's when I lost it. I told them to get out of his room, to never touch his things again. I packed a bag because I couldn't stand another minute in that house. Carrie tried to stop me, not because she cared, but because she wanted control. She said if I left, she'd make sure everyone thought I abandoned her and the girls. She said she'd tell people I was unstable and abusive. I told her she'd already been doing that, hadn't she? Her face changed then. That was the moment I knew I was right. A few days later, I checked my emails and found messages between Carrie and the school counselor. She had written to them multiple times, saying Zach was showing signs of aggression and that I was struggling to manage his outbursts. None of that was true. He'd never been violent or aggressive before her daughters started targeting him. The counselor even mentioned that Carrie had insisted Zach needed constant supervision. It was like she was setting him up to be labeled as a problem child. When I called the counselor, she sounded uneasy. She admitted she'd been confused because she'd never seen any behavior from Zach that matched Carrie's description. The only thing she'd noticed was that he was quiet and withdrawn. She said Carrie seemed overly invested in controlling how people perceived him. That was putting it lightly. I called a lawyer the next morning. I'm filing for separation. I also spoke to a family law consultant about custody rights for Zach. I told Carrie she could keep the house, the furniture, everything. I just want my son. She didn't even argue about that. She just said, "Good luck convincing him you care now." Maybe she's right that I can't undo what's been done, but I can still try to make it right. Zach agreed to live with me once I moved closer to his aunt's area. I've already started looking for a rental nearby. Update 3. The moment Carrie realized I was serious about leaving, she started fighting in a way that had nothing to do with keeping a family together and everything to do with destroying mine. At first, it started quietly. She told mutual friends I had lost my mind and was abandoning her and the girls. I started getting cold messages from people I'd known for years, short replies, distant tone, or no response at all. One even hinted that Carrie told them I'd been violent with Zach and that he ran away because he was scared of me. That's when I understood what she was doing. She couldn't stop me from leaving, so she decided to poison every connection I had left. While all of that was happening, I was packing up the rest of Zach's things from the house. He didn't want to come with me, not yet. He said he wanted to stay at his aunt's until things settled. So I started boxing his belongings, his posters, his clothes, the few things that hadn't been ruined. When I went to his room, I found that the girls had been in there again. They'd written on his walls in permanent marker, calling him names, mocking him, and drawing on his photos. His bed had been flipped, his books shredded, his drawers emptied. It felt deliberate, like they wanted to erase him completely from that house. Then I saw something worse. They had posted photos online of the mess, tagging each other and captioning it with jokes about cleaning out trash. I felt sick. I reported the posts immediately and took screenshots for proof, but I couldn't shake the image of them laughing while they did it. I realized that the cruelty didn't come out of nowhere. Carrie had raised them to think this was normal, that destroying someone emotionally was just another kind of bonding. Zach saw the photos too. He didn't say much, just texted that it was expected. I told him I was sorry and that it wouldn't happen again. He didn't respond after that. A few weeks later, I got notice for mediation. Carrie had filed a claim for spousal support and partial custody of Zach, claiming I was alienating him from his new family. She said the separation was all my fault and that I had emotionally abandoned her daughters. She even had her lawyer send statements from her friends, the same ones she'd been feeding lies to for months. It was surreal reading through pages of people describing me as volatile and aggressive when I'd barely spoken above a whisper for years in that house. But then came her mistake. During discovery, my lawyer presented the screenshots from the girl's social media, the video of the guitar being broken, and the emails she had sent to the school about Zach being unstable. Her lawyer asked for a recess and came back pale. The energy in the room shifted completely. The mediator looked at Carrie differently after that. There was no shouting, no dramatic confession, just quiet realization from everyone in that room about who she really was. Carrie tried to backtrack, saying the posts were just jokes and that the emails were taken out of context, but there was no saving her image after that. Her lawyer withdrew from the case a few days later. The court ordered the girls to attend counseling and assigned a family therapist to assess emotional safety for both households. The report that came back confirmed everything I'd said. Zach had been emotionally mistreated, isolated, and deliberately humiliated. When I moved out officially, Carrie stayed in the house with her daughters. I didn't even want to take anything except a few of Zach's things. The place felt poisoned. The laughter I used to think meant happiness now just sounded like noise covering something darker. The girls still tried to provoke me when I came by to collect the last boxes, Kara smirking at me, Tegan whispering under her breath. I didn't engage. I'd spent too long reacting to them. Now, I was done. Zach moved in with me a month later, after everything with the court was finalized. He barely spoke those first few weeks. He'd come home from school, stay in his room, and avoid eye contact. I didn't push him. I knew I didn't have the right to expect anything from him yet. I just made sure he had food, space, and quiet. He kept his door open sometimes, like a small signal that maybe he didn't hate being there. That was enough for me. The first night he stayed over, he unpacked his guitar, the same one I'd had repaired. It wasn't perfect anymore, but he still kept it. He set it on the stand next to his bed and didn't say a word about it. I took that as a kind of truce. Not forgiveness, but a start. Even now, things are fragile between us. He talks to me, but only when necessary. Carrie hasn't stopped entirely. She still tries to reach out sometimes, pretending to be civil, asking if I'll reconsider mediation terms or if Zach will visit his sisters. I don't reply anymore. I blocked her number and told my lawyer to handle everything through formal channels. Every message from her feels like a trap, and I'm done walking into them. Final update. It's been a couple years since everything happened. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago, and other times I still wake up thinking about that night he left. Life looks different now. Zach and I live in a small 2-bedroom apartment near his school. He's 18 now and graduating this week. Writing this feels strange, because so much has happened in between that it almost doesn't feel real that we got here at all. After the court ruling, Carrie tried to hold on for a while. She appealed the counseling order and tried to delay the custody arrangements, but the evidence against her was too much. The therapist assigned to the girls reported that they refused to engage in sessions, often mocking other participants and blaming Zach for everything. Carrie defended them until the very end, saying the system was biased and that I'd manipulated everyone. It didn't matter. The final decision gave me full custody of Zach and stripped Carrie of any legal say in his care. School improved for Zach. His grades went up, he joined a small music group, and his therapist said he was opening up more. I noticed he smiled sometimes, not often. but enough to remind me that he was still capable of it. We'd started rebuilding piece by piece, even if neither of us talked about it directly. Carrie's daughters didn't fare well. Both ended up being referred back to the system after a long list of behavioral issues. Kara was expelled from her school after a serious bullying incident, and Tegan followed the same pattern months later. Carrie lost her parental rights after refusing to comply with court-ordered counseling. The last I heard, the girls were placed in different foster homes. I don't feel satisfaction about it. Mostly, I just feel sad that this was the only path left after everything that happened. They were cruel, yes, but they were also kids shaped by someone who taught them to be this way.